thank you for joining. Please subscribe, follow us on Substack, on YouTube, and we have a good episode for you today. We have Tvarita, who is a child psychologist.
So I'm a child and a structural psychologist, which means I work with children, teenagers, and just family systems as well. Now that I'm actually practicing, I do have quite a few of my own and observations that I have. So I do like to note them down. But just what I've seen throughout the years, and it's lovely that I've been getting a lot of subscribers, and a lot of them like my posts. Sometimes they message and they're like, oh, this is interesting, or they pick up lines and say this is interesting. So
Yeah.
I like it.
And the lines that you write, some of it, I mean, I've highlighted. I mean, it's very relatable and somehow very impactful. I mean, these are long articles. They're not short reads. So, and I've always debated with how long do people have, like, attention span to even go through an article, but yours was so easy to read. So kudos to how you write. Not just about what you write, but how you write and how you're able to put this message across is really important, and very well done. So welcome to Substack.
Thank you.
I want to talk about the articles, because there's so many things that you've written in it, that I think two articles, two separate topics in a way, related, but one on AI and the other one really about anxiety. This is a 6-year-old, which I thought was interesting, because this, you're saying the parents came to you and basically the issue was the kid is falling behind. And falling behind is kind of what stood out to you. Tell us more about that case.
So in this session, actually, it was an observation session. So it was during my training years, and for me, it was a unique session because it was a child, and they came and they said, "Oh, she's falling behind, and this is happening, that is happening. They're tuition for so many hours. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. There's school, there's this other class, there's this other class, and there's so many classes." And they weren't asking for anything. They just wanted to know why the child was fidgety. Which it startled me, because a child at that age would be fidgety. I think that anyone would know, but a child at that age would be fidgety. But the parents wanted the child to do so many things and be stern with education. It was just a few people, the observers in the room, that found it odd. Even the psychologist who sat there of the same age did not find it odd. So that's what I noticed, that it was a culturally thing as well.
Yeah.
So that was something.
We normalized it. We
normalized it. Yes, we did. We normalized it. And then I thought that the poor child doesn't know what he's doing. There's so many children that would be in the same circle, loop, and they don't know what they're doing. They just want to play. They just want to be a child, and we're not letting them be children.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, because for me, like, I didn't even know kids were taken to psychologists that early these days, and if at all, like in the US where I am at, like it's a common thing. It's in the culture, right? I mean, it's not taboo. So when I read this, like, first of all, is that happening in India? Is that happening a lot? And for these reasons? And so that was kind of what my thinking, where my thinking went.
But also for a lot of misconceptions. So they come to psychologists because suddenly it's somewhere they read that children get ADHD early. So then they'll read a bit of the symptoms and be like, oh, they can't sit in one place. So then they'll come to the psychologist and be like, my child can't also sit in one place. What do I do?
Yeah.
So it's just, grabbing bits and bits of information and then coming to a psychologist and saying, I think my child has this. So the self-diagnosis for the child is also very common.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if did the pandemic, I think the answer is yes, but the pandemic really made this worse, right? And I think Tvarita Ayer Vemuri, probably somebody you know or in your family, I think, is saying that, I mean, it was so easy during the pandemic, we kind of started normalizing it then.
Yes.
Give the gadget, give the iPad, we're all in the same house, trying to figure out how to keep us sane under one roof. So giving the kids the tablet was the easy way to do that. But then that never got reset. I know very few parents who did that. Like I have a few examples in my family who did it. Most of them, that became easy for them to do, even when they started getting out, like from right. So the pandemic did, right. So that
Course,
yeah,
yes, it did. But then I feel like there you can't also completely blame the parents because then they were also in a
not during
situation
pandemic.
where they didn't know what to do and the children were also there. And I
Yeah,
think at one point the entire house got sick of each other because you're living in the same
yeah,
place
yeah,
together and it gets frustrating. I mean, it
yeah.
obviously would. So, yeah, there was there. But the way that after that, there was no, how do we fix this? The
It wasn't.
damage was done. But there was
Yeah.
no, like, how do we make them go outside again? How do we teach them that there is a
Hmm.
life outside, not just inside? That wasn't there. And then,
Well,
of course, there were fears as well for quite a few years as well of,
yeah.
sending the children outside. But yeah.
I think the outside aspect is interesting, right? And I doubt about that. I think that had already gone to some extent, right? The gadgets
Yes.
changed that already. But
Yeah.
there were rules and regulations on usage and when you can use. So there was a little bit of balance, not exactly. So I feel like before the pandemic, we were already on a downward spiral from gadget usage or allowing kids to use the gadgets. And this is coming from somebody who has no kids. So give it the grain of salt. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's just,
primarily the mobile phones, and then we were worried about social media, not so much about AI. So
yeah.
AI has been added to that list now.
Yeah, so so but so we're all, in my opinion, we're already on a downward spiral in terms of not giving, slowly giving away control in a way, right?
Hmm.
We're being relaxing, like as parents, or who are like give the kid the thing. Very few parents, like I said, had some sort of a future forward kind of thinking where this has negative impact. Then the pandemic hit, and then it just became more of a default option. And like you said, can't blame the parents. So we were already, so there was no returning really. It was already, it just,
Hmm.
pandemic just, just sped up the pace of gadget usage. There were good aspects of it, like older parents got more into gadgets faster. Like they learned faster to kind of order on Amazon and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the kids just um, got more free usage time, like no controls
Of course.
usage.
Yes.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's the way I see it. That makes sense,
Yeah,
yeah, from a
because
psychology
I mean,
standpoint.
I obviously, yes. But then, see, I think also with the pandemic, there's a lot there, right? Because in the few years that everything was happening, there were times where people were also sticking with the family, doing things at home, being creative, trying so many things as well. But at one point, I do understand the total, let's just give them the gadget because
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's slightly easier. It was easier. It was a way out. But now, because everything is so dependent on it, because after having work from home, and then schools were also from home, everything turned
Mhm.
from home, and we were all on the gadgets 24/7. So it's basically
Mhm.
the lives became on the gadgets, so you can also keep them away fully. So
Yeah.
that is also something that I do understand. But yeah, that's where the issue does lie at times.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think, in this article, again, we'll wrap this segment up before we get into the next one. But in this article, you're really talking about making sure parents know that distraction is good. Let them be distracted. Let the
Yes.
kids be wriggly. They are interested in, like, this is your line, interested in approximately 40 things at once and deeply uninterested in the 41st. That's fine. That's the thinking or the development process.
Yes.
Don't don't look at the distracted child and bring them into the room with the psychologist and say,
Hmm.
hey, why is he distracted or why is she distracted? So that and then you say 1 million new, this is stuff I didn't know, right? 1 million new neural connections per second are being formed. So be cognizant of the science behind this. This is how we are built. We've got to build those neural connections. Like in our age we are losing most of it, but
Hmm.
they are in the formation phase of all these things. They're learning how to regulate emotions. They are learning how to navigate friendship, how to make sense of the world that is enormous and mostly confusing. So let them do that. Don't they hold that against them as a problem that they're not listening. And then you say this is all about also competition, right? The made competition, not the real competition. It's all this ranking and the stuff, right? So tell me more about that. So this is the parents' fault in a way, in a way. Like, I mean, I know you're not blaming the parents here, but the point is, we
It
want
is,
them into
in a
this. We're
way
putting
it
them into
is.
this rat race already so fast, right?
But that's also society, because I mean, we've all been trained that way. It's something that this society wants desperately, to be in the rat
Yeah.
race, because if you're not there, you're not anywhere. If you're not
Mm.
competing, if you're not the best, you don't get the seat anywhere. And I
Yeah.
understand, because the environment, the system, everything is built that way. So I obviously understand the concerns of the parents of wanting their child to be the best from day one. But that certain control, they lose the fact that they're just a child,
Yeah.
and they will figure things out, they will learn things, and there are so many different things that they can do. So
Yeah.
it's also, having a pre-decided notion of what your child should be doing, that's also there.
Yeah.
So those are also concerns that I've noticed.
Yeah.
And also what the thing with, obviously, this whole competition is, it really really hampers the child. They get anxious at any age. Even the ones that are in the competition are so anxious,
Yeah.
and they lose their confidence, they lose their security, they lose their sense of esteem, they just lose everything. So they're bottled down to actually nothing, and then the motivation goes as well. So that's
Yeah.
something, it's quite
Yeah.
difficult to actually explain to parents. Again, psychoeducation does help, but I do believe it's a systemic fault as well. And it's a societal thing that needs to be changed. Because, of course, I mean, I can't separate each and every person from the society. So this is like ground level work where psychoeducation needs in the community to
Yeah.
understand that, this is how this works, and you can't be pressurizing your child.
Yeah, which is why I'm glad you're writing about this, because most people everybody knows this, but they don't know it, in a way. I think this is why the conversation needs to happen, because we'll get into social media in the next segment, and some of the research behind it, and how we're trying to solve it, because this is all related. But in this case that you wrote about, the second article about the 6-year-old that the parents were talking about, this wasn't really about the kid. This was about their anxiety,
Yes.
right? That is kind of what you point out in the wrap up of this article is, you know, they are more anxious about this. It's their anxiety they're not able to control, and then that somehow this becomes an issue for the child. Tell me more about that a little bit as we wrap up this section about anxiety. Like, why is this a parental or a parental anxiety issue?
So that's common, because it's just, you see other parents, you see how other parents are doing, and you also want to join, you also want to talk about, you also want to praise your child. I think that's something very common with Indians and South Asians. We want to praise our child, we want our child to be the best, we want to compare our child. Our child can do this, your child is a little less than ours. Just that comparison. They do want to be in a situation where they can say, my child does this, what does your child do? So that
Yeah, it
does
makes
give them
sense.
anxiety, because they want to be ahead. They're
Yeah.
in their own race, and the child's not there. It's just them running.
See, I'm glad I didn't give my parents that opportunity. Because I wasn't good at all in studies. I just barely scraped by. But, these days I see kids, 96 out of 100 is not good enough. 99 and a half is like 49 and a half out of 50 is not
Exactly.
good enough. Where's that half mark gone? I mean, what the heck, really? I mean, seriously, I mean, I would not have survived at all if my parents were like that. Again, I didn't give them an opportunity. I was that good. So, this is great stuff, Tvarita. This is really good stuff. Uh, I'm just reading some of the other highlights. Children who are pushed hardest in the earliest years do not consistently outperform their peers by adulthood. Um, What they do show is higher rates of anxiety, lower intrinsic motivation, all the stuff you've been talking about, and a relationship with learning that uh, became sour early and quietly, right? So this is affecting their learning. The more we do this, not only is it higher rates of anxiety and lower intrinsic motivation, they're losing motivation, but you're just affecting their learning process. Again, going
It
back to
does.
let them be themselves, right? Is the point.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It causes friction even in the family because at times, there's just oh, there's this difference where if the child's parent is constantly trying to say let's do this, do this, do this, do that, it would make them hate education
Mm.
itself. At that
Yeah.
young age, if you're
Hmm.
sitting for tuition for 4 or 5 hours, you would hate
Mm.
tuition. I think I remember being a child and sitting in tuition only for 3 hours, and I hated education. I hated maths because I used
Yeah.
to sit for 3 4 hours. So I
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah.
And
I
now it
mean,
is more challenging also
It
because the
is.
attention span has
yeah,
Of
really
course.
reduced
Yeah,
a
that's
lot.
completely
I
less.
mean,
absolutely.
to have a kid sit for a few
Yeah.
minutes without doing anything, without looking at a screen, is
So
so
difficult.
difficult.
Yeah. So again, your article is amazing. The way you end this is basically let them, let them be themselves. Don't micromanage them. Let them have the freedom to be mediocre at things while their brain quietly figures out how to be extraordinary. That's the way you put it. And the child in front of you is not a project to be optimized.
Yeah,
I think
that's
Yes.
a
that
good
says it
point.
all,
Very
right?
good. Yeah.
That says it all.
Yeah.
Beautiful writing. Please keep it. I can't
Thank
wait for the next one.
you.
So that is about all of the stuff that you've written so far, right? And is
Mhm.
this a weekly thing that you do? Weekly?
Yes.
What's your
So
cadence right now?
it's called Things I Notice, and it's a weekly thing. So every week I try to put an article about things I've noticed in a therapy
Yeah,
room or my observations and just interesting but different things that I've noticed.
yeah. There's a question from Asha.
It's
I
a good.
wanted, yeah,
Yes.
while we go to the next segment, which is basically about the social media bans. We'll get into that. But Asha asks. She agrees that there's a need for systemic change. Do you have any recommendations on how to make parents and teachers more aware of the risks and help them convey this information to children under their care?
Okay. So I think the first thing itself is for the parents to be fully educated. That's very necessary. For the teachers to be fully educated, no judgment. You can't have any judgment whatsoever when you're talking to a child. A child should understand that you're coming with just sheer love and sheer care. So it can't be no, don't do this, or you know, a fully controlled way of saying
Mhm.
anything. It has to be basically making them understand what is happening, why it's bad, giving them the resources, telling them upfront. Many people don't do that. They like to, go and beat the bush around different things and talk about different ways. But I think telling a child directly why this is wrong, why this is happening, is so simple because children do understand. They can differentiate between right and wrong. They can't say
Hmm.
no and they don't have impulse control, but they do know what is right and wrong. And so teaching them right and wrong, and also teaching them and being able to ask why is this easy, why do you think you should be doing this, what do you feel. So also understanding what they're feeling so you can respond towards that as well.